Wood High School in 2008. That shouldn't be a tongue twister, but apparently it is. And she attended Ferris State for 1 year. After leaving college, she began to work several jobs at a time, which is not uncommon these days for our young people, unfortunately. One of the jobs, she found more than an income when she was working at the old Pioneer store and Kilwin's Chocolates, where she began being mentored by Colleen and David. I'm sorry, Colleen and Brian. And they took her under their wing and mentored her. And she got an opportunity to meet other business owners and learn more about the area and learn and pique her interest in some of her activities. Ultimately, she began working at Chemical Bank, and subsequently under another contact through her mentorship and networking relationships, she became a licensed insurance agent. Currently, she works full-time as a licensed insurance agent and has plans to return to school. I am turning off I'm sorry, I've got to turn off my printer because it's having a fit. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. She's currently a licensed insurance agent, and now she's looking forward to returning to school to complete her degree in business. Our other panelist is Joe Washington. He owns Enduring Memories Photography. Mr. Washington works out of Baldwin, Michigan, and he enjoys capturing emotions displayed by individuals, trying to capture those in photographs, portraits, wedding, sports, engagement photographs, senior photographs, and so forth. He's a member of the Professional Photographers Association and travels extensively with his business. He is also a native of the area. So we will start this evening by hearing some introductory remarks from Amanda Johnson. Amanda, take it away.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who had reached out to me to be able to be a part of this. Not gonna lie, very nervous about it. Anyone who's met me in person knows that I love talking and having conversations, but I'm also a very private person. So after COVID and being isolated, and now I'm doing this, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. Not really for sure what to say more than that. Thank you for, bringing me in here, and I look forward to hopefully continuing to be a voice for people of color and kind of being a positive change in the community here and trying to participate and bring conversations up that need to happen. And
thank you, Amanda. So has Mr. Washington joined us yet? I don't see him. So we'll start with the questions.
There, Dr. Epps,
yeah.
we do have Nathan Fricky who joined us. He's on the
Okay.
on the Zoom, and he could probably do an introduction. He just joined us.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I want to first thank Karen Green Bay for the invitation. I apologize if I look disheveled. I just came from a basketball practice. I coached my daughter's travel team, but I am not a native of this area. However, I came and went to Ferris in 2002, graduated in 2007. I played football for Ferris. I met my wife in class, and we started a family up here. I also work out of Baldwin. I work at the public school over there, where I am the behavior interventionist. I'm the homeless liaison. I coach middle school track. I coach middle school girls basketball. I do a lot of different things over there. And in Big Rapids, I am the defensive coordinator and DB's coach for the varsity football team here in Big Rapids.
Okay, thank you so much, Nathan. That's a very, very thorough introduction. It's so wonderful to meet you this evening.
You as well.
So we will go ahead and start with the prepared questions. So the first one, and I will ask you to answer in turn, Amanda first and then Nathan second. Could you share a little bit more about your personal journey and the factors that you think have perhaps contributed to you being successful in the areas that you've selected to pursue your career?
Yes, so I started off from the area, not from Big Rapids specifically. And I grew up in a small town of Morley. Not very many people in the community looked like me. I came from a blended family and got my degree, went to Ferris like a lot of our local students do, from high school to Ferris. Coming into the community, it was coming from a farm town into Big Rapids. It was like, oh, we're going to the big city. Wasn't too big of a city, but back then that's what I thought. And I was surprised by how welcoming people were initially. You know, if you're a hard worker, you can get far here in this community. If you have a good work ethic and are willing to put in the time, you can succeed in the community. People are willing to kind of meet you where you're at and help you grow. Some things that definitely helped me were trying to always keep a positive attitude and not let any of the negative things that might have happened hold me down. A lot of customers that I have helped that have later become people I socialize with on and off have mentioned they didn't realize some of the things I was going through at the times I was, purely because I always kept a smile on my face and kept a can-do attitude. But yeah, so keeping some of the things that helped me to succeed and get me to where I was always trying to strive to be the best I could be, anticipate where there was a need for help or assistance, and then place myself in a position where I could be that person helping or assisting. And always smiling, always keeping a positive attitude.
Bane of Zoom, being on mute and forgetting to take yourself off. But thank you so much, Amanda. That was very, very well said. Now, Nathan, would you care to respond to the question?
Well, I grew up in the town of Covert. And when I lived there, it was very community oriented. We really lived by it takes a village to raise a child. I was in a single parent home. I'm the oldest of 4 children. My dad left when I was 10. So I watched my mom be a rock star all of my life. And essentially that's what helped mold me to who I am. Because I was the oldest of 4, I was kind of forced into growing up a little faster to assist her with the younger children and the chores around the house as she worked and did other things to, help us get by. We've gone through a lot of things in my childhood as far as homelessness and, being on food stamps and living with family and those type of things. So watching my mother go through that with us and never fold has helped mold me into what I believe is the strong person that I am, the person that is able to, carry a lot of things on my shoulders and still keep walking, keep pushing forward regardless of what's going on, So moving up here to Big Rapids for college was a kind of a shock for me because Covert was mostly Black while I was there. I would give it about 90% Black. And then I came up here, it's about just the opposite. So it was a little bit of a culture shock for me because even though I'm half white, my father is white. I didn't really socialize or interact with the white side of my family. So some of the morals and values and the way that Blacks and white live are a little bit different. So interacting with the individuals up here was a little difficult initially. But Ferris also helped mold me into who I am. Obviously I got my degree from Ferris in criminal justice. So it gave me the education in the areas of life that my mom could not provide. So, Ferris was a great part of my life for me. So what I'm doing now with the school in Baldwin, all gets wrapped back around to my mother, because she does the same thing in Covert. As I grew up there, she worked at the school. She was doing behavior intervention stuff. She was a great role model. She was a great mentor. She was a coach. She did all of those things at the school I went to. And I find myself coming full circle, really being who she was. I started off at Acosta County DHS being a foster care worker and being a juvenile delinquency worker. I've worked at Eagle Village. And now here I am at the school doing the things that my mother has done. Difficulties in the community obviously came up here. With the race issue, it was more in college than it was as an adult. And it wasn't as blunt or direct, but you would notice looks. You would hear subtle comments. You would get maybe a group of individuals leave the area when you come into the area. So things like that I've noticed coming up here in Big Rapids. But the person that I am, and for me to be able to handle that, is all because of my mother. The things that she taught me by not talking, and then the things that she taught me by talking really helped mold me into who I am.
Thank you so much for that. The influence of our parents sometimes isn't something we recognize until we're a little bit older. So
True.
that's so what you just pearls of wisdom, really appreciate that. The second question, as a native of the Big Rapids area, or as being in the area and from around the area, what are some of the experiences that shape your perceptions about succeeding as a person of color in this particular environment? We know that some individuals see that challenge and don't face it. Well, you, Amanda, you, Nathan, you both have chosen to face it. So could you give us some information from your experiences to help us understand your journey a little bit further? Amanda?
Yes. So one thing, I was raised by, my mom is white, my dad is white. I was raised by my mother and her family here in this community. And as such, and with no real close connection to the other half of my family, I, from a very young age, have been raised to behave a certain way that is deemed acceptable by people who are not people of color. And as such, I've learned to bite my tongue. There are a lot of stories, there are a lot of situations I've been in that are not acceptable, but I don't talk about them. There are situations in work environments that I've been where the question of what is a professional hairdo for a person of color? There's only so much you can do on limited resources with female hair. It's kinky and coily and curly. Needing it maybe straightened or not having it deemed professional to wear your hair in a natural state because nobody else's hair looks like yours. Or in opposition to that, you can wear your hair that way, but then you become the petting zoo animal of the community or the workplace, and everybody, oh, I can't help myself. Having to deal with those small little situations as they arise, and it's offensive, but also having to keep that smile. Like I said, always keeping a smile on your face, not allowing it to affect your work, because if you were to be offended by that, you would be being oversensitive. It's just your hair. They're complimenting you. Why does it matter if they're touching your hair constantly? I mean, it's not like they're saying something bad about it. Well, it's my personal space. But I'm sorry. Can I have the part of the question again? I think I lost track.
Asking that you share some of the experiences that have shaped your perceptions about succeeding as a person of color in this environment.
Yes. So things that I have helped me to succeed are learning that everybody is trustworthy and reliable in your work environment, but not to the same degree or level. Sensitive subjects in the news may pop up, and your coworkers are allowed to talk about it, but considering the fact that your opinion may be opposing to all of theirs, you're not allowed to discuss that around the water cooler. So it's not on the customer floor. Just learning that even though people don't always view the effort and work you put into things as being as good, it still is. There have been a lot of situations I have been in the past where if you were to hold apples to apples scenarios, my coworkers and myself, we were not treated equally. And we were both females, and we were both of the same age and comparable work experience. And you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. It's not, when you're the single breadwinner of the household, you have to bite your tongue and accept what people above you have deemed you need to accept, or you need to move on from where you're at. There's always another door waiting to be opened and walk through. The one thing that has helped me is trying to always see the positive and understanding that not everybody's path or life has brought them to a position where they have been allowed to see the struggles other people have. Everyone's limited by what their own experiences are, and the people they choose to communicate with. If they don't choose to communicate with people who have different struggles, it makes it that much harder for them to understand the struggles they go through, to then create solutions to those struggles, and create a better place.
Thank you for that. Nathan, are you still there? Do you need me to repeat the question? Are you good?
Actually, I was just rereading the question in my email so I can refresh my memory.
Okay.
So no, I have it. Some of the experiences that helped shape my perception about proceeding as a person of color in this environment. A lot of my experiences happened when I was younger, watching my mother. Now, like I said, it was predominantly Black, but I learned from her that you have to watch. You have to be slow to talk and slow to trust. I heard her answer, and I appreciate her answer. My experience has been different in the fact that you can't expect positivity out of everyone. This is my biggest thing about myself, I feel, is that my awareness level that people are people. No one's perfect. So you have to keep a middle line. When you meet someone, your expectations, you have to temper your expectations of people. Otherwise, you tend to be disappointed if your expectations are too high. So when I'm meeting someone or when I'm in a new area, I don't tend to be bubbly or outgoing. I tend to watch the environment, understand how the environment works, and then work myself into that environment, because the environment was there before I got there. So I can't change the environment initially until I get into the environment, So my awareness level has helped me be successful in this community, understanding who is there truly that has my back, or what has support for me, and understanding and realizing who really don't support what I'm doing. They'll be, yeah, hey, how you doing, in your face, but behind your back they talk. So everybody has those type of experiences in their life. So me just sitting back and keeping my mouth shut to watch, not to be quiet, to watch first. Because once I watch and I understand what the environment's like, I now know how to approach you with my language. A lot of people, when they see me, so I had this experience as a foster care worker. I had to do a home visit to see a child. I get to the home, and a white woman opens the door. She's a foster parent. And she said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm here to see so-and-so. I'm the foster care worker." And I told you I was on my way. She was like, "Oh, you don't look like a foster care worker." I said, "Okay, what does a foster..." And she didn't really have an answer for me. She was like, I don't know. I just didn't expect to see someone like you come to the door." Yeah, exactly. Because when I'm talking to you on the phone, my language isn't, from the ghetto handbook. You know what I'm saying? I'm enunciating my words. I'm able to explain what needs to get done. I'm very articulate. But then when I come, I'm not sagging my pants. I can't. I work for the state, so I have on khakis and a shirt anyway. But the way I move and the way I'm viewed, puts me in a different category. So understanding that this took me a little while. Understanding that in this area up here, people, white individuals. I'm sorry, I'm a black and white guy. I don't say Caucasian or African American. Black and white. White people are unlearned when it comes to the African American life. They don't do Black History Month up here. They don't teach these things in the school. These students are naive to what really life was like in the past, so they don't know how to treat people in the present or the future. So I've had to deal with that with my kids in school. Them random kids saying random things to my children just because they're children of color. And so I've had to go up to the high school and have conversations with the principal about what a student has said to my child just because they covered a lynching, or they watched a movie where someone was getting lynched, and then a white student said something to my black son about, "Oh, I know what would have happened to you back in the day." Think those type of things have also helped me to sit back and watch people more, to really see what their motive is, instead of just accepting everybody into my life, because everybody isn't for everybody. And I've had to learn that. Another experience, I know this is kind of long-winded, but another experience when I was working for the state of Michigan, I'm driving a Ford Focus to another home visit. I'm crossing the Maple Street Bridge down by 3rd Street where the pawn shop is. A Ferris cop is on the one-way, pulls out behind me and pulls me over. Literally, he pulls out, turns his lights on. I pull into BP. I'll pull into Curry's, pull in right there in the parking lot, full of people. He comes around to my door. I said, "Can I help you, sir? Can I ask you what I did wrong?" "License and registration." Okay. I reach for the glove box where it is. He said, "Put your hands on the wheel." I asked him, I said, "Do you want me to get the license or registration or not? I work for the state. I have my ID on my chest. I work for the state. I'm on my way to a home visit. The license and registration is in the glove box." So he let me grab it. He took it and went to his car, tried to run the plates and couldn't. Well, state of Michigan's license plates, they don't expire, so they don't have tags on them. So he pulled me over because there was no tags on my license plate, even though the state cars don't have tags because they don't expire, the state cars. And he sat me, I stayed in the car for 10 minutes while he tried to run my plate or do whatever he had to do. He said, "I've never seen this before. I need to talk to my supervisor." I said, "Well, you're making me late for my home visit to see a child who's in foster care. Can I please go?" So he called someone on the radio. No one responded. He said, "I'm gonna let you go this time, but I need to talk to my supervisor about this. Why are you pulling me over? I wasn't speeding. I'm in a state car. Why don't you know this? Maybe because you're a Ferris cop and not a city cop, and you should have stayed on campus. I don't know. Maybe not. But those type of experiences have definitely, you know, shaped my perception about succeeding in this environment. You know, that's what I had to, those are things I've experienced.
Thank you so much for those experiences that you've shared. I think that those experiences are not uncommon, even in areas where there are larger African-American populations or mixed race individual populations. Individuals of color tend to be targeted more often by law enforcement, as you described, in these situations where there's no apparent reason to have pulled them over or whatever. So thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any concerns in regard to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And if so, how do you see these concerns reflected in the Big Rapids area?
I'm
So,
sorry to interrupt, Madam Moderator.
Yes.
We have an individual, I think it was Dr. David Pilgrim, raise a hand, and I wasn't sure if he wanted to ask a question of Mr. Fricky. Was that the case, Dr. Pilgrim?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to know, when did that incident occur?
Which one? The driving incident?
The one where the police officers pulled you over?
That had to be about 5 years ago. I've been working for Baldwin now. This is my 3rd year in Baldwin. And yeah, so it had to be about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
All right, thank you. As I said, would be interested in you sharing any concerns that you have about diversity, equity, and inclusion in if you observe those concerns reflected in things that you see in the Big Rapids area. Amanda, if you wouldn't mind starting.
yes, I do have concerns with it. Throughout the over 10 years that I've been working and living in this community, I have only worked, and I've kept employment this entire time, most of the time with more than one job. I have only worked with one other person of color this entire time. I know there's more people out there like me, but they're not the faces you see when you walk into a store. They're not the faces you see on the teller line. They're not visible. And it brings the question, why? If I am visible, then why aren't they? Why are they not getting the opportunity? Are they not asking for the opportunity? And what can we do to see more diversity? Have more people in our community be visible. Another thing that concerns me is I have 2 children in Big Rapids Public Schools, and they are in the elementary level, 3rd and 2nd grade. This is the first year being in Big Rapids Public Schools that I have heard anything about them learning something in Black History Month other than from their music teacher. Jenna Lamar does an excellent job. She always brings up Black musicians in her teaching in Black History Month. Previous years, like last year, I had inquired about it. Inquiring minds would like to know what's the curriculum, to the secretary and principal of one of the elementary schools. And by the secretary was told that's not appropriate to teach children at this age, which was very concerning to me and offensive. In my mind, that means she thinks Black history is slavery, which at a young age can be a very difficult conversation. Maybe is better left to be taught at a different age. But there is a lot of Black history in America that is age appropriate for kindergarten through 4th grade. This year, I reached out to the other principal of an elementary, which is where my kids are going to school now. And Within a day, she emailed me a 2-page document listing all of the different ways they're incorporating Black history, not only to celebrate this month, and she chose to use the term celebration, and to expose the children to the culture, but also how they will incorporate it throughout the course of the year, meaning it's not just a 1 month thing, 1 month and you're done. Black history is American history. So that's a positive improvement. And I think some of the way these concerns are, last year my son was called a nigger at the N-word at a school after school program by another student. I don't believe it was resolved. It wasn't resolved to my satisfaction, but at the time I didn't know who to go to or how to resolve it. And there was no clear way to take action to get this resolved. A second grader is not saying that word fully knowing what it means. There's no way anybody can tell me that. But the fact that they feel comfortable enough to say it in a place where you're not supposed to say naughty words is concerning. And it means they're hearing it at home and they're in an environment where that's not a concern in our public schools. I would like to see more inclusion of people of color I would like to see more people of color capable of having a voice in our schools. There have been times I've attempted to attend parent-teacher conference, or not parent-teacher conferences, PTO meetings, to kind of be that voice, see what's going on. Every year, except for this one, I've attended 1 or 2 meetings and not been allowed to really have a voice when I was in, and things move kind of fast paced. There's a lot going on. And I wanted to do it. So not very many parents actually want to step up and do PTO things to be involved with the school, but how do we get those voices heard? How do we check in with children? I have neighborhood kids who are in our middle school who are children of color in situations living with their grandparents, not their parents. And they have told me horror stories of how they are being treated by staff and students at our middle schools. Situations where they're being bullied because of the color of their skin. They bring up concerns and are kind of dismissed. Like, oh, it's not that bad. I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it, but if you say something, you mean something. And if it's a problematic thing, it should be resolved. So I definitely have concerns, and I think there's definitely room for improvement. But like I said, when I did reach out, I was able to get some information from one of the principals, with hope to the future that the other schools can kind of catch up and catch on. Black history is American history.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And indeed, Black history is American history. Nathan, do you have anything that you'd like to share with us on this question?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear that Big Rapids has been good to me and my family. There have been several. I mean, most of my friends in Big Rapids are white, and they're good friends. They're people that I trust, and they're people that I value. They have taught me a lot about being a man that I didn't know because I didn't have a father around. So I want to be clear about that. But to piggyback off of what she was saying, it's concerning that we're more reactive than proactive. You know, I'm not that guy that's going to be on the front lines, leading the chant. I'll be there and I'm gonna help support, So I'm also not pushing for, for everybody to be on that wavelength, but I am pushing for everybody to treat everybody like someone, acknowledge that this is a person regardless of the color. Because that to me does not matter. That's my biggest concern about equity and diversity, is that we don't, up here, it doesn't feel like that everyone thinks that way. You know, we're all not created equal in everyone's eyes, and that's a problem. That is a problem. Just because I look a certain way, because I dress a certain way, just because I talk a certain way, shouldn't automatically disqualify me for a certain thing. So yes, there are some concerns. They're not huge ones in my book, because like I said, the Big Raptors have been good to me, and my route that I have taken to success has worked for me. And by sitting back and watching and learning people, it's hard to disappoint me. It's hard to bump me off my track, because I already know what you're like before I even talk to you, because I've watched you. So I already know what to expect from you. I already know what you're going to say, or the type of things you would say, because I've already had a conversation with you in my head. You know what I'm saying? So yes, we do need, do I say we need to have Black History Month? I said this back when I was in high school. Why do we have to have a month? No one else has a month. Why can't it just be a part of history and just be taught, period? History is history. Why can't it just be history? And that's what I mean. That's equity. If it's part of history, let it be history then. And let's teach all of history, not just bits and pieces of it. And if we're going to teach bits and pieces of it, let's teach bits and pieces of every part of history. There's segments to history that everybody needs to hear. And the equity and the diversity and the Black history is part of that. Just put it in with the rest of it is all I'm asking. I'm not asking for special treatment, because I'm not that person. Don't give me anything. I don't mind working for it. I don't mind earning what it is. Just like that's what I teach my kids. We're going to earn what we get regardless of where we're at, and we're going to deserve it. That's why we're going to get it, is because we deserve it. So don't give me anything, but make it to where the playing field is equal for everyone. Everyone just does not think about everybody's best. They don't have everyone's best in mind, and that's what kind of holds this community back.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry
Dr.
to interrupt
Epps.
again. Oh, there you go. Ms. Green Bay, please go ahead with your comment. And then Mayor Hoganson also would like to pose a question or share some thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walters. I just wanted to add on to what Amanda and Nate were referring to with their children, the situations with their children in the public schools. And I just wanted to maybe put a suggestion out to Jonathan and the committee, I should say, Antoinette and Rita, is to maybe see if we could invite the principals, superintendents of the area schools to discuss what is happening in our school systems. And because this is a concern for our children, and there's even some standing situations that are going on right now. And unfortunately, I believe these things have been heightened over the last few years in our community. And so our families are dealing with some significant, the kids in particular, are dealing with some significant issues that are causing them delays or affecting how they are learning. And so this has to be addressed. This should be addressed somehow in our public school systems, because our children shouldn't be seeing this or hearing these comments from their classmates, or the instructors or the teachers should be more open to discussing what is happening with the children the lashes or the name calling that they are receiving, and it versus not, or just rubbing it off, shucking it off their shoulders. So some of the schools, especially the northern schools, we just unfortunately had Martin Luther King Day observed in some of the schools, in some of the northern schools. And it's unfortunate that either Black History Month or inventors, et cetera, are not part of our history curriculum in the school system. So to add to, or to help with this issue that is happening with our within our schools, it's very possible that this initiative or this group can kind of help or support our teachers in being sensitive, or how to help the students when they are experiencing these things in their classrooms or on the playgrounds. And some of you, I did mention one of my experiences when my child was he was just in preschool, and that's just absurd for a 5-year-old or 4-year-old to hear that, my child shouldn't, my dad told me that I can't play with a Black kid, So, those type of things, they go beyond, just like what Amanda said, her one of her children's was called the N-word. And sometimes it gets it gets very vocal, and it hurts the kids, and it hurts the parents, and it hurts the families. And so just wanted to mention that maybe this initiative can kind of help the schools if they don't know
Miss
where to
Green Bay,
go.
Miss Green Bay, I hear what you're saying, but I think the conversation is trying to be brought to the wrong people. The school has minimal effect on what the kids say, because
Right.
the kids live at home. These things are being taught at home, and the school can only be reactive to words that are said. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the parents in the community need to have the conversations with the parents in the community. The school can only make sure that they're, I don't want to call it racism, make sure that their racial issues that come up in the school are firmly and fairly addressed, because they have to be reactive.
Right.
The words that are coming from these kids are coming from their parents, and that's the biggest issue.
Exactly. Exactly. But this initiative could help the teachers and the schools in ways to how to handle these conversations in their classrooms, because like I said, they're just being brushed off and they're not being addressed.
Excuse me, Karen, but
Mhm.
what I'm hearing is the standards of behavior have to be enforced. There needs to be, what I'm hearing you say is there needs to be a realization that these are serious issues, and that there's certain behavior that's expected of all students in a school,
Right.
all members of, within a certain setting. And what I heard Amanda say, and what I heard you say about the experiences with your children, and same thing with Nathan, is that these experiences happened. They were reported as they should have been reported. However, they were not dealt with in a way that was satisfactory.
Right.
So, perhaps there is something that could be done to bring these issues to the fore and perhaps get them dealt with. I believe Dr. Pilgrim has his hand up.
I just want to remind very quickly, sorry, Dr. Pilgrim, but Mayor Hoganson was kind of next in line.
Okay, I didn't see him on the chat.
Yeah, I mentioned that
Okay.
to go after Miss Green Bay.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I still don't see it on the chat. Okay,
Don't anybody be sorry. I would gladly yield my time, and I happen to agree with you wholeheartedly. The history of our nation is fraught with theft, enslavement, and some other things that created a structure that we still live in today, whether we want to appreciate it or not. And all of us, no matter how hip we think we are limited by that structure. So we all need to work all the time. And I heard somebody say the other day on a radio program that they made it a point that no one ever be humiliated in their presence. Now that's a grand thing to aspire to, but I think you could talk about discrimination in the same way, and that would be a personal thing to do, a personal thought. You're not going to an institution and demanding satisfaction. You are saying, I'm not going to let this happen at all. So that, I think that would be a good thing. The question I had is so off this in a way, but especially when Amanda was speaking, I wanted to ask it anyway. And that is, what are positive or key resources that aid personal growth for somebody who is going through the kind of struggles that you detail? What helps?
Something, I think you were asking the question to me, right?
Yes, well, to both, but
Oh, okay. Something that has helped me, and I do have a story I'd like to share about a teacher who kind of was the first one to make me realize that it's okay to have bodily autonomy and not accept some of the racial things my classmates had said around and to me. But something that helps me and that I try to teach my children is you need to have somebody you can talk to about these things. There has to be someone. You can't keep it buried inside of you forever. When I was growing up, I didn't have anyone to talk to about these things. My mom thought she was doing the right thing by denying race was ever an issue. So instead of growing up in an environment where I was allowed to express any angst, frustration, or negative emotion regarding the color of my skin, I was taught to suppress it. So something as an adult I have learned is through therapy with my children and myself is just to communicate it. You have to have somebody you can talk to about your experiences, who can empathize with them, who may have experienced comparable situations to truly understand. There are people in this community who are not people of color who I've spoken to about things, and they have had my back. They have understood within the limited context that they can, not having experienced it themselves. We can only, you don't experience it, you don't know it to the fullest extent, and that goes with any life scenario. But for my children, the one thing we do is we talk about it. We have nightly discussions. If they have questions, there's no question that's inappropriate in my house. We have full conversations about everything. Things that happen on the news. As adults, I'm sure all of you have seen a lot of the things that happen in our nation. And I choose not to hide those scenarios from my children. Instead, I choose to discuss them with my children at an age-appropriate level. Things happen. Bad things happen. Bad things happen because people don't know better, or people choose to not believe that it's a problem. These are some things we can do to resolve that. These are some actions we can take to make the world a better place. And if somebody comes to you this way, this is what you do to solve that solution. You go to this adult, you come to me. Planning and talking about it. Never in my household does somebody have to be shushed. because everybody's voice matters and everybody's perspective and personal experience is valid, even if you don't agree with where they're coming from on their perspective.
Okay, Nathan, did you want to respond to the question?
Yeah, I raised my hand, but something that the school can do after, since I began working in the school system, we do something called restorative justice. There's a fight, there's a racial issue. We've had a few in Baldwin, but what restorative justice is we've tried to figure out a way to restore that relationship that was harmed between those two individuals to, if not a friendship level, to a respect level, to where this doesn't happen again. So what we do is we'll hold what's called a restorative circle. We'll get the victim and we'll get the perpetrator and maybe some witnesses, or maybe the families, the parents involved, and we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation. We allow the victim to portray their feelings, because everybody has those, and everybody has the same feelings at some point, when they're harmed. So we all can relate to these feelings that they're having. We let the victim express their feelings. We let the perpetrator share their piece after they've heard, the feelings that they've caused or the harm that they've caused to the victim, and we kind of put the shoe on the other foot. We allow them to think about things in the victim's shoes, so that way we could try to teach them how it makes people feel and see if they would like to feel that way. And if they don't like to feel that way, it kind of helps them stay away from doing those type of things again. Even if they still don't like that person, maybe it stops them because now they respect the fact that this is how it's going to make them feel. And I wouldn't want to feel that way, because we try to keep everybody safe in our school, whether it's physically or emotionally, the best we can. Obviously things are going to happen, but that's why we use restorative circles through our restorative justice, because to get through this life, you have to have relationships. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, you have to have a relationship. You're not going to make it through this life by yourself. So that's something that I don't know if Big Rapids does or has thought about doing, but that's something that can help.
Thank you so much for that suggestion. I believe Michelle had a question.
Thank you, Dr. Epps. I wanted to just say, Amanda and Nate, thank you for sharing your stories with us this evening. And Karen Green Bay, thank you for the suggestion of getting the Big Rapids Public Schools involved in the Big Rapids Social Equity Initiative. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'll throw my Big Rapids Public School Board hat on for a moment. I will certainly take that to the superintendent and whomever else I can share it with, and make that suggestion that they take part in this. I think that's a fantastic idea. And if I can help to be the conduit in that, I would love to do that.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That connection will probably prove to be quite helpful. So we really thank you for that. I believe Byron had your hand up.
Yes. Going back to, I believe the conversation that the conversation should be steered solely to the parents. I would have to kind of disagree, because while I believe that as far as with racism or anything being taught in the home, that is one element within the framework. But again, I feel like we still have to address and acknowledge that the school also is a big impact with that. In fact, I believe that in the schools, not being able to be trained on how to deal with resolution from that standpoint, or teach on Black history or racial tensions and things of that nature, that then confirms or strengthens what a child learns at home, because then there's no true action when they go to school and pertains to that. And then also, and looking at from the example from the young girl of whom one of the classmates said that if slavery was still around, she'd make her and her family her slaves and they'd treat her real good. Well, that conversation wasn't started from home. That was started from an experiment that the teacher who is Caucasian herself, started, was led, but I believe if the school was equipped and the teachers were equipped with training in terms of doing curriculum with Black curriculum or talking on slavery and things of that nature, the teacher may have been able to get her point across without leading into a conversation that happened like that, you know, in essence. And that's, yeah.
Thank you, Byron. I appreciate that. Dr. Pilgrim?
Thank you very much. First of all, the restorative justice piece, I think this group assembled here is doing a little bit of that. I don't think it's going that far, and it may be beyond the scope of this group to do that, but this certainly has some of the elements of that. And I think that should be applauded. One of the things I'd like to see this group or some other group do is to lead a discussion or facilitate a discussion about so-called Black history that's open to the public. And there's some good points that were made about this. I mean, I spend most of my adult life doing what people call Black history. But I think there will be some value in us having that discussion, and there would be value in teachers from the school system being a part of that discussion. And the other part, and I debated whether or not to say this, but since I've written about it, it makes sense to say it. We miss opportunities. For example, that mural, which is sort of a history of the Big Rapid, or the area, includes no peoples of color, even though we've documented that peoples of color were loggers in the area. That's not just a missed opportunity. It's an inaccuracy about the past. And that's one of the reasons I say that if people don't want Black history, then they should do it right. The fact of the matter is it is not incorporated in the lesson plans, the involvement, the engagement. It's just not. Even the story that we found at Ferris, which were about the African-American students who came up to Ferris in the early 1900s, that wasn't a part of the narratives in the school that we taught. And so we have to be intentional about that. So every time I pull my car to the left of the bank and I look at that mural, I'm having the same experience that other people have when they look at that mural, which is they're thinking that there was no significant African-American impact in that area. And when I brought that up with my co-author, with Franklin, and we were talking to some people, they were like, well, they were wanting to treat it as a diversity issue. It's not a diversity issue. It's not an inclusion issue. It's an accuracy issue. It's just getting it right. And when we get, and so much of what's called Black history or brown history or red history is just really trying to get it right, to get the story accurate. So I know there will be future opportunities for the city in mural form, in its permanent displays, because that mural is more powerful than a book. There will be other opportunities. And by the way, I'm gonna say this, there's an opportunity to change that mural, right? And that would be a powerful message that we're listening to people. And then for future projects, involving people from a lot of different groups so that we make sure that we get it right. That's all. That's all we're trying to do, is to get it right. And in the process of getting it right, you tell the little Black kid in the car the same way you tell the little white kid in the car whose car is parked at that intersection, who looks at that mural, that they were a part of the origins of the area.
Thank you, Dr. Pilgrim. Is okay, Okaya? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Okia.
Okia, how you doing?
Hello, everybody. So these are, we've been here for about 25 years. And 27 years, we started off going to Ferris, and my kids have experienced racism, being called nigger, what would happen to you back in the day if you would have dated a white girl. Recently, I think that we've just started to have the principles to take us serious. We even went as far as civil rights. When we were at Crossroads, we had many of issues. And when we went to meet with the principals and the superintendent over to civil rights, she told me, get out, leave, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And so we stuck around for a little bit, and we went ahead and left. And then we took all of our kids out and brought them over to Big Rapids. And we still experiencing some of the same things. But now I think, where we've talked we've spoken to the principal, pretending before we came over, just to, make sure that they knew that, we were not going to be done with this coming over here. And they were very apologetic. They assured us, and then my daughter, my son, he's 24. He's, they all are, well, at least two of them on therapy. And so we sit in the therapy. Basically, it's, racial stuff, some things that they did not even tell us, some things they didn't even share with us that was happening. We had no idea what was happening. We dealt with this at both schools, and it's, even staff, have made a comment to my kids. If you do this, if you are okay, so if we make the team run, which Jayla has suggested, they will probably take her out back in Lyncher. And it was a big deal. And when that was brought out, I was getting Facebook messages. People of color were calling me and was saying this is not okay. People called the school, cussed the people out at the school. And so we, touch base. And she called Jayla and apologized to her. She's been called Spider Monkey around the whole team, and thought it was okay, to call her a Spider Monkey. She's just so long, and she could just really hit the ball, and she's just like a Spider Monkey. And they even went to the extent of buying her a Spider Monkey and presented it to her when she got her award. It's ongoing. We've had parents that have left Big Rapids. They came fresh and just were not aware of circumstances, situations, and the kids were fighting in the school, and they were kicked out, given a warning, being called a nigger, and we just hear this over and over again. It's just, by my kids going through therapy because of the racism that they have experienced here, is just very sad. It's it just makes my stomach, it's just rough. It's just rough to deal with this. But I've learned that you have to put things in right. So immediately when my 13-year-old came home and said, Mom, God called me not once, not twice, 7 times. And he said, I lost it. So, he them, and, I emailed the school, and the principal actually emailed me because we've had some different situations that have happened through the school already. So he knew that I was going to email him. So anyway, our emails crossed. So he was telling me he was on it, and the student has been reprimanded. He was suspended from school. And there is no, acceptance for this type of talk or this type of racism in our school. We know even the parents. It's just, it's just ongoing. And, I don't know, we even tried to pull together some parents at one time, and obviously I had no idea other families were experiencing these types of things. But we all, it was like it was brand new. So every time I would bring something up, they were like, oh, this never happened here. Oh, we've never heard this. Oh, we don't have to get on this. And nothing. My daughter she got a scholarship to play over at Northwood. And her grades were messed up. They wouldn't give us what we needed. To come to find out, they hadn't even been on the system for years. And the teacher had left, and the teacher was telling me that it's there. She's getting ready to lose her scholarship. We call it academic. It's just been. My husband had to go and sit in there multiple times when he was not at work. We were taking turns sitting there. The principal would walk right past us, who is now the superintendent of Crossroads. He would just walk right past us and say, he's working on it. He's working on it. Don't talk to his counselor again. They're going to get to it. And it was a while. It was a long while. And when we finally spoke, the school board, they said they was going to get on and make something happen. But I told them, I said, we need some training. I talked to Dr. Pilgrim. I asked Dr. Pilgrim if there was anything that, we could do to get some training around here, because we have to have training. And I gave them my way number, phone number, email. I sent them multiple lists, Crossroads and Big Rapids. And they said they were going to call. And to my knowledge, I don't think there was any other call, that came about, from that.
Okay, thank you so much for those comments. I believe Nolan has something that he'd like to add.
About this specifically, or just like the organization I'm working with?
I got a message that you would like to make a comment.
Oh, I think Rita is speaking on my behalf. I'm a little flustered at the moment. Well, I guess I should just try to explain the organization that I created and I'm trying to like run and get off the ground, and how it sort of relates to Black History Month and whatnot. The first thing I want to say is for us to question our idea of what Black history is, because when we talk about Black history, we aren't sitting here and talking about various, cultural or linguistic ancestral histories related to African peoples. We're talking about the modern struggles of Black people in the Americas. We're talking about enslavement. We're talking about racial caste. We're talking about all that stuff. The idea of Black history is of the resistance and existence of Black oppression. And why that is relevant is because my organization that I'm trying to get off the ground, which is Students for Solidarity, is meant to be an educational group to understand what is at play in racism in America, why the history of our nation is so tied to racism, why the history of what we think of as Western society, Western cultures of Western Europe is so tied to racism, to enslavement, to colonialism, to imperialism, to resource extraction. And that's by going through the ideas of great figures like Robeson, like Du Bois, like Douglass, like Haywood, like Hampton, Newton, Shakur, et cetera, and trying to give people a framework, an analysis of political economy to understand that there are motivations for racism, for racial oppression that go beyond a simple idea of ignorance and bigotry. Ignorance and bigotry and interpersonal violence are a enforcement mechanism of economic motivations. The reason why we have Black History Month as this month of understanding and trying to get in touch with this history of struggle and oppression, of resistance, why that struggle and oppression and resistance exists in the first place is because you can exploit Black and brown bodies. There's no reason to have racialized slavery, or to have racialized caste if there's no profit in it. If I may try to recollect some numbers I was reading about from the colonial period when our nation was founded, right? It would cost roughly about $20 in that day's time to maintain a slave, and you would get upwards of $200, $300 in profit. And that's why racism persisted, because it was profitable. And that sort of analysis and education is the basis of our group, and why I'm here and what I want to try to like bring in all this.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your efforts with your organization. I think that bringing to the fore an understanding of the foundations of this nation and that profit motive that you mentioned, that was baked into the Constitution actually at the time that the nation was founded, is very germane and appropriate to discuss, even though some people really don't want to talk about that. But it is certainly a part of how we got to where we are today. And we also are basking in a lot of willful ignorance about those types of issues. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's see. Is there anyone else? I don't have any messages of anyone else who wanted to say something.
I would, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I looking back towards the public schools in our community, I don't believe suspension for students is the solution to the problem when there's a racial issue that happens. When a student says something that is racially insensitive or bullies someone, and this ties in kind of with, gosh, now I lost the word for it. But I think what needs to happen is education. Our schools are there to educate our students. And that means they need to step up and do that job. Yes, it is a parent's job to teach their children right from wrong, and they have responsibility from that. But every parent is going to fail at something in educating their child. That's where we as a community need to step up. And part of that community is our education system. When a situation or a scenario happens, restorative justice, that was what I was going for. When a student does something like this, I think it needs to be treated as an educational situation. When a teacher does something racially insensitive and makes children feel unsafe in their learning environment, which is a very crucial and key part to them learning and trusting the people who are educating them, I think that staff member needs to go through sensitivity training, and I think it needs to be very transparent what training they're going through. It should be something that the school is proud to do. We're all human, and we can only know what we've been taught or what we've learned. And if there's an area we're lacking and it's affecting our children, we need to take that initiative and that ownership and find a solution. The solution is sensitivity training for our teaching staff and education as to why things said are not appropriate, why that may not, even if you're well-intentioned, that may not be the best way to say things. Why is it not inappropriate to say the N-word? Why it's inappropriate to call another student an Oreo when you think they're white on the inside and black on the outside. That is, that's, yeah, I think maybe there needs to be a group of parents or maybe a specialist brought in for the schools, someone on staff at each of the buildings who is trained, who has gone through these experiences themselves and is capable of educating the student, meeting them where they're at and helping them to fully understand why or how. And obviously there might be some parent pushback with that, but maybe having it offered as an option other than suspension from school.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I believe Dr. Eisler has a comment.
Yes, I just want to thank the people who shared their experiences tonight. When there was talk about organizing this series, this is what I hope this would be. I think this has really been a penetrating conversation. It's because of the people who shared, and I really want to thank them for doing so.
Thank you for that comment, Dr. Eisler, and we certainly are greatly indebted to Amanda and Nate and Karen and Okia, everyone for sharing these comments. It's very, it is these kinds of things, sharing them outside of your private circle is very, can be very, very frightening. So we hope that we are providing a space that is safe for these conversations and the opportunity to share and to acknowledge that these things are important. I believe Byron has another comment.
Yes, kind of just piggyback on what Amanda was saying, especially in looking at our school systems and giving a holistic viewpoint, especially with like suspensions and expulsions, because I believe one thing that also needs to be acknowledged is looking at not only the lack of important embedding curriculum that addresses advocacy, race relations, but also the use of expulsion and suspensions and how it really builds upon the school to prison pipeline, you know, and how that is something that is really hurting directly our community, especially in thinking of us knowing like directly here in our community, there's a middle schooler who's currently on probation now because he punched a student that called him the N-word. Now he's on probation as a middle schooler. And not only that, but his parent is paying fees to the family of the kid that called her son the N-word and things of that nature. And I believe that we really need to address on how we do really, again, address, identify, and work on those issues from school points, because I believe that situation could have been held completely different without having to have a middle schooler be put on probation or things of that nature, because again, that just creates other obstacles down the line.
Okay, thank you so much, Byron. Dr. Walters?
Thank you. So I definitely want to follow up with, I believe it was President Eisler's comments of thanking everyone for sharing. This has been a great investment of my time and energy. So I'm certainly grateful to have this learning opportunity from all of you. And I just really wanted to bring back to some of the things highlighted by Mr. Freaky and also Ms. Johnson, and that is to really appreciate there are different perspectives, there are different experiences, whether you're in a small rural town like Big Rapids or a large metropolitan city like Chicago. If you can have the same background and ethnic identity, sexual orientation, gender, religion, and of course, you know, the list continues on with our own unique identities. And with that, you'll have different perspectives. But what brings us together to have some sense of unity is our desire to live in shared time and space and peace. And how we're getting there, what steps we're taking to get there is not always a smooth transition. And so I'm really emphasizing how important it is that we really work together, that we really find and hold on to that thread of commonality of, again, securing that space of peace and harmony so that we can continue to thrive. And I'm hoping, and so this is my pitch, and I know our chair of our committee, Mr. Epley, will join me and speak to you all about this as well. Encourage you to find a way to support our committee, join our committee, take part in some of our future activities with future events, and then share ideas. I've taken some notes. I know Dr. Epps has as well in terms of suggestions of next action steps that can be taken. And so I really hope that you'll join us in doing so, because I'm investing my time because I have faith in this process. I want to grow from this process. And I definitely feel that this is a great time to contribute with the small knowledge and skills and talents that I have to offer. So again, these are my words of encouragement. Feel empowered and join the team.
Thank you, Dr. Walters. So we had scheduled these conversations to take about an hour and a half, and we are almost at the golden hour where we had said we would conclude. So I want to again thank our guests, Ms. Amanda Johnson, Mr. Nathan Fricke, and I believe that I see Mr. Joe Washington on his phone. It looks like he's in his car. So I think that we had some timing issues, but I just want to acknowledge Mr. Washington being here. And thank you for taking that time. There's one other thing that, there's one question that we, and because we didn't get to it, I'm not expecting anyone to try to answer it right now. But my final comment to you is to think about and reflect on, why is it so difficult for us to have conversations with each other about issues of racism, equity, inclusion, diversity in this country, and in many ways throughout the world? Why is this such a difficult thing for us to tackle? We're people of goodwill. We're intelligent. We know how to discuss things with each other. So why is this one topic so hard for us? Hopefully some of the efforts that we are engaging in these conversations will help make that easier. And I would encourage you, as Rita mentioned, to think about joining us, think about sharing this information with your friends. And you know, this conversation had more people than the prior conversation last month. And hopefully we'll just continue to grow and grow and grow. And so with that, I want to thank again, Ms. Johnson. I want to thank Mr. Fricke, and I want to thank Mr. Washington. And I will turn it back over to Jonathan Epley. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And I appreciate so much the privilege of being able to engage with you this evening. Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending, and extra special thanks to our panelists, Amanda, Nathan, and Joe. I wish we had were able to hear from you this evening. Thank you for sharing your stories, your success stories. Thank you for making Big Rapids the place where you choose to live. It's not a perfect town, but we're striving to make things better all the time. And these conversations are a part of that. And I'm sorry for every bad situation that you've been in your entire life, but I thank you for your perseverance and again, for choosing Big Rapids. For those who don't know, the Big Rapids Social Equity Initiative grew out of the march. It's organized on campus by Mr. Brooks back in June during, as the Black Lives Matter movement was sweeping across the country. Following that, many people took notice and realized that these conversations needed to be had in our community. And a couple months after that, in August, the first conversation was held via Zoom. And out of that grew the framework for the Social Equity Initiative, which has three main pillars: community engagement, public safety, and institutional change. These events that we've organized this month and last month are part of our community engagement effort. I chair that committee with my wife, Megan. We have some fantastic members on our committee working to put these events together and doing some other things behind the scenes right now, but we all have a passion for making our community better, for making our community welcoming for everybody, no matter what your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual orientation, whatever. And we look forward to doing more things in the future, but we also look forward to having your participation. And if you would like more information, I'm pasting my contact information in the chat, as well as Paula Preby from the city of Big Rapids. She and I have been fielding a lot of questions from people looking to get more information. Please reach out to us if you want to get involved. We have, like I said, these three committees, but there's a lot of work to do, and many hands make light work. So again, thank you all for taking the time out of your evening and participating and sharing your stories. And we will have another event coming up on March 25th, also partnering with the Ferris Women's Network to highlight similar success stories of women who live and work in our area, as March is National Women's History Month. So thank you again. Thank you, Karen Green Bay, for making the connection to partner with the Ferris Women's Network. Please express our gratitude to everyone in that group when you next meet. Thank you all and have a good evening.